I think it's right about now. Whoa. This is The Illusion and Stuart for our every other Saturday night discussion about the powers that be, right?
Yeah. That's a pretty good way of putting it.
Yeah. I think we've got a good Saturday night for that. And wait, let me just do one thing. Well, why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe we should start doing that. You give yourself a little intro, and then that gives me time to get the YouTube end of this all set up while we're live.
play around with those settings. Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Tooper. A lot of you are probably kind of familiar with me on this channel now. Those of you that are still viewers here, done a few of these with Hamish, 3 of these so far, and we've done 2 in-person things before out in Los Angeles, which were very fun, prior to the world supposedly coming to an end with the COVID stuff. I teach political science at a small university out here in Oklahoma, where it's looking like it's going to get extremely cold this coming week, looking like we're going to get somewhat of a blizzard inbound here. So we got that going on. And other than that, I'm a PhD researcher, which I can see the end of the tunnel on right now. So I think I'm going to be done with the PhD in the next 8 to 9 months. So that'll be awesome. And otherwise, I'm trying to get my own YouTube channel kind of up off the ground right now. YouTube is something that I've done on and off over the years. I've never stuck with it like you have. I kind of bounced around of sometimes wanting to do it, other times not wanting to do it. But I feel like I'm now in a position where I can talk about a lot of these problems confidently and really get into them in a way that I think is pretty different, which is essentially what we do here every other Saturday, thinking about the elites and the powers that be and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely would like to get a plug in for that. That's just youtube.com/Stuart J Hooper, and that'll take you there. And tomorrow I'm putting out a video on the Ukraine crisis, where I'm going to take a look at 5 so-called expert commentators on the issue. I don't know if you've watched any mainstream media coverage of this right now, Hamish, but I would bet you have not heard from a single Russian voice. I would bet you have not heard from a single anti-war voice. The entire narrative right now is so insanely biased. I just had to take a look at 5 really egregious examples and got a little fired up in that video. So that'll be coming out tomorrow morning, and would definitely appreciate anyone's help in trying to grow my channel and grow a bit of a base there and get a bit of a community going.
So you know what we'll do on that. We will you can, if you send it to me, I can post it in the community part of the of my chat, and I'll start providing a link in the bottom when we get going. Okay. So send that to me tomorrow, and I can put it in the are you in the high frequency tribe Telegram?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I have a Telegram.
Send it. When you just text it to me, and I'll get it out in the platforms. And then I've almost thought about refiring up a Twitter account just for that kind of stuff. But
I mean, the thing is, these platforms have a lot of problems, as we're all very well aware of at this point. But it's where the audience is. So you kind of, if you want to get this sort of message to the people, you have to go to where the people are, and unfortunately, they're on these platforms.
No, it's interesting. I'm getting the Rumble thing going. I think Rumble's gonna work out well, just because it's relatively easy to use. For me, that's a big thing. Like BitChute's just too hard. It's not user friendly. It's not intuitive. Rumble seems to be very intuitive, but I have yet to really use it too much. I've been uploading videos to it. So, but it seems pretty user friendly on that level. But so all right. I think Ukraine's an interesting place to start on this thing, as it is an interesting Saturday night. And Ukraine, I think Ukraine's an interesting place. I mean, if you go back to let's just go back, 60, 70 years, right? Like Ukraine felt the brunt of, what was, the Russians and the Nazis and the brutality. But you go back it up even more with Stalin and the Holodomor and the kulaks. And I talk a lot about the kulaks. People don't really realize what went down with the kulaks in the Ukraine. So the Ukraine's been heavily abused as a chew toy for most of the last century, and it looks like they're gearing up to, and it's been for most of this century as well. So I'm gonna say that I'm super intrigued from your perspective as a political science professor of what is going on in Ukraine.
Yeah, I think what is going on is we have a situation where, in fact, there's one clip that I talk about in that video tomorrow, where this guy is giving his so-called expert commentary, and he's saying Putin right now at this moment needs to have this chaos in Ukraine. He needs to have a war in Ukraine because he's doing so bad domestically. His domestic population is not buying into what he's doing. His approval ratings are dropping. Therefore, he needs to start a war in Ukraine, distract the population, get them back on his side, because we're going to war and we're the Russians and we need to all bound together and go after this issue. Well, the point I make is kind of got an interesting reflection of that situation in the Western world right now as well. We have Joe Biden with historic low approval ratings, bridges literally collapsing around the country. So the country is literally falling apart. Then if you look at the United Kingdom, same problem. Boris Johnson caught partying, living it up while the rest of the country was in lockdown, also now in an extremely dangerous domestic political situation. So yeah, I think it offers an opportunity for the Western world to also have their own foreign adventure distraction.
Well, yeah, it's you've got that. I tend to roll more towards Putin. Putin doesn't bother me. I'm not worried about Vlad. It's again is the big make Russia into the boogeyman. Well, it looks to me that they're the neighbor who's just trying to pay the bills and keep the scene going and keep the house painted and the trash cans rolled out to the street and not go under and pay the mortgage, while the neighbor on the other side of the house is going, no, those guys are getting ready to remodel their house, while it's them that are sending in the plans a little bit. I tend to think that from, we know who Vlad is, but I tend to think that he's sort of a dude who's just trying to protect Russia. Yeah, I don't see big ambitions of this globalist agenda coming out of Russia. They point to Syria, but like it kind of forced Russia's hand on that. I've always been super down on as U.S. and interventionists in the name of pipelines. But as we get to this thing, I think painting Boris or Vlad as the aggressor as I think is a red herring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And if you turn on you could turn it on right now, turn on CNN, turn on Fox News, turn on MSNBC. Any so-called expert commentator that you find on there is going to be telling you that Putin and Russia are the end of the world. This is going to be World War III, and it's all their fault. Everything that is wrong in the world is Russia's fault. And this isn't to say that we should lionize Russian politics and Putin, right? Either, right? We don't have to say this is the best system ever and it's clearly angelic, because it's probably definitely not. Right? Putin definitely being an ex-KGB agent, definitely not an angel. We can probably say that for sure. But is it really accurate to say that Russia is responsible for all of the world's wrongs? right now? I don't think so.
No, I think they seem to be a scapegoat, the scapegoat, and why do they need to be the scapegoat? Is I look at some of the stuff. I've seriously in my reality over the last 4 or 5 years truly thought about the emigrating to Russia as because it does hold some of where they one of their goals was to be the largest exporter of organic crops on the planet. Like, I'm for that. And they're pro-family, they're anti-woke. It's a freak show over there, but it does have that interesting flavor of a lot of open space for a guy like me. Like, I look at the Kamchatka Peninsula and I get very interested as a surfer and a guy who loves trees, and the Kamchatka Peninsula still got it going on as far as like kind of pristine environments go on coastal Pacific Ocean settings. So I'm not a big that Vlad's a boogeyman guy. I think there's something sort of charming about him, I find.
Yeah. I'll tell you what it is that he's actually genuine.
Yeah.
He'll actually say what he believes, and that's pretty much it. There's no beating around the bush. There's no walking around the question on tiptoes, right? He will just give you a direct answer, and this is why we're doing it, and that's it.
He's like one of those dudes that I view as truly is powerful and in charge. The way he kind of goes about dealing, like those sort of impromptu things when he's out about. Like, I'll always feel like the one where he was passing by the little wedding party. I think they were outside the Kremlin or something, and he went and they kind of pulled him in, and he did the group shot with all the bridesmaids and stuff. And there's a dude who totally is secure in his alpha male position and in his like role of leadership. He seems to be the puppet master on a certain level as far as Russia is concerned, as opposed to, remember that one where he went in there and he was chewing out all the oligarchs who weren't doing right by the at the factories about their people and stuff? I was like, all right, man. Like, I think he's one of those dudes that rules with an iron fist for the benefit of the balance of his community. You deal with the society that likes to get, I follow all those crazy Russian Instagram pages, dude. They're a freak show, dude.
Yeah, and there's just look at the Middle East. There's a case to be made that a strongman leader is better than absolute chaos. That's exactly what happened after we got rid of Saddam, then Gaddafi. Right, these places turned into, they go back to the Stone Age in how they work as a country. Right, everything literally falls apart. Everything is destroyed, and it's just the end of any form of civilization. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And I think what Putin really offers the Western world, or the elites in the Western world, is the perfect boogeyman, the perfect threat that is sitting there waiting to come and eat us alive, which can constantly be rolled out as and when is necessary, to the benefit of the military-industrial complex, of course. When other threats seemingly subside or the public don't buy into them as much, well, he's there, right? There's others around. We've got Iran, North Korea, and they kind of just rotate in and out. They're used, hype up a situation. Well, get rid of the Russia now. Let's go back to Iran. Well, Iran, that couple of months, move on to North Korea. So there's always a threat. There's always something there.
Vlad's got the one, as a dude who fully, why I have a deep a sort of respect for him as a leader, is he's got the one thing the West doesn't really want to mess with. He will nuke us. And he's, that thing that was going on down in Georgia, when he was like, look, you pull your guys back, or we're going hot, and we're not bluffing. And I don't think that Vlad's bluffing on any level. I have no doubt that he will fully do tactical nukes and just be like, you guys, let's go. Let's do it.
And again, wait till you see this clip that I put out in this video tomorrow. There's a former ambassador, the former US ambassador to the EU, says that the West should be using third parties to launch cyber attacks on Russia with plausible deniability. Well, that's all fun and games until Russia turns around and says, well, you've just taken down our financial infrastructure with a computer virus. You've just taken off our power supply or our water supply with a computer virus. Maybe we're going to do the same to you, but like you just said, with a nuclear weapon. So the potential for escalation here to that level is very real. That's why I think this is the most dangerous situation on the planet right now, and why the Western elites should stop poking this particular bear. If they have to have some boogeyman, let's make it somebody who's not going to annihilate the entire planet.
Well, there seems to be something. I find that, you know, the No Agenda guys did a pretty good breakdown yesterday, and they were pointing out the whole thing where all the alerts were going on, where everybody is all, I got to pull up my map, dude, because they were talking about this place, and I'll throw it out there to you, is because, you know, Russia's dependent upon it. It's, you know, that's why it's got that, its port down there in you know, Syria, and it's, you know, it's dependent upon these ports, these year-round ports. But it goes, they were talking about how it's Kaliningrad there, between Lithuania and Poland, right? Mm-hmm. And how there's some sort of, like, Russia has some sort of special access to this place, and there's, I guess, a bunch of like undersea cables, like the transit, like the big the big intelligence cables under the water there. There seems to be, it's bigger that the Ukraine thing's almost a distraction from what the globalists are like doing, that it has something more to do with this movement of information, which I tend to think that, like, right, isn't the Ukraine always been sort of that interesting chute, you know, what do they call it? The breadbasket of Europe, right? Like, Ukraine's not, I don't think we know enough about Ukraine in the West, and it's got, and everything over the last 5 years has Ukraine stamped all over it, especially with the sleepy guy in the White House and his crack smoking son, and what they were doing. And what was it? Who was the gal who was running it? Was it Borshchenko? Borshchenko was the female, or was that the guy who replaced her?
I'm not sure.
Remember when they had the thing? I remember watching it live, just like we're watching the stuff in Ottawa, when they had the thing going on in Kiev with the music going and the whole pile of rubble in there, and that the last, what was that, 6 years ago? I think that was 6 years ago. So there seems to be an instability there, which I don't. I see what, like, what you're saying is, like, in that sense, is like the dudes who really need to go to war on this thing is Johnson and Sleepy Joe, because you know their narratives are falling apart. I mean, Boris, you called it out 2 weeks ago that this party at number 10 Downing was a bigger deal than people in America even understood. Like, that's a big deal over in the UK, I gather. It's
the biggest deal. It's the only thing that people seem to be talking about. People are really up in arms about it, because the UK was one country that really heavily complied with all of the lockdowns and everything, and really bought into it, that they were all working together and try to end the virus, slow the spread, protect the National Health Service. They really bought into all this, and then to have the dear leader turn around and be exposed, it's been quite a shock to the system. But I think just one final point on Ukraine, everyone just needs to ask themselves, do do I want to go to war for the military industrial complex? That's the question you need to ask yourself with Ukraine, because if that's what it comes to, war, that's who you will be fighting for. You will not be fighting for your country. You will not be fighting for liberation. You'll be fighting for the military industrial complex and its aims and its leaders.
Well, it does. It seems like, again, it's one of those things where even you won't even be fighting for the Ukraine. I mean, it seems to be coming out that the Ukrainians are like, dude, get away from us with your warmongering freak show. I mean, that's the weird thing. I think in the West, we tend to think of sort of Eastern Europe as this sort of backwater, when I'd argue it's total second world, really like infrastructure. Now, these people aren't asleep at the wheel. They may be a little bit rural. They may be a little bit like, 1970s, but, there is the whole modern thing. I mean, Kiev's no like backwater. Like they know, they're like, whoa, dude, this idiot over in Washington's going to get us all killed. I mean, that to me seems to be like what they're kind of the message. If I hear what I've even just heard on the alternative stuff with the leader of, what's his name, Zelensky.
Yeah. So did you see that? He said, we do not need to panic. There's no
dude, stop. Well, that was the thing. Everybody's like, they're evacuating the embassies, but he's like, there's like 80 countries' embassies over there, and only 4 of them are evacuating, right? And there are these people that need it to happen. What, France, the UK?
Well, I think that's the president of Ukraine realizing what I just said. Like, do I want my country destroyed for these foreign forces and these foreign interests, seeking foreign aims that have absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine? Do I want this country that I am the president of to be used as just another part of this game that these globalists play? Do I want to become Iraq, the Iraq of Europe? Do I want to become the Syria of Europe? And I think he's now taking a more pragmatic position and saying, well, maybe not.
Well, so, that again, that is just, if I'm a Ukrainian, right? And so I can only be a Westerner with my my brief glimpses of historical narrative Ukrainian to fill his shoes. I go, well, wait a minute. Like, you've had the brutality of Stalin. How many of the kulaks got killed? What was that? 2 million, 3 million people starved to death in the street. And again, I always look to that as like, that's the one everyone really needs to truly wrap their head around, was that of the landed farmer being kicked off of the farm and literally starved to death by mandate coming out of the Kremlin, right? And then you move into World War II, where you had these two, everyone gets all so very America, D-Day, that thing. But if you look at what was going on over in the Ukraine, like that's where the real war was taking place. That was the real brutal stuff. And, that was in the Ukrainians' backyard. I mean, that's when were the really, I read the one book about the SS death squads and the whole thing. And that's where they were really cutting their teeth and giving all those dudes the amphetamines and the whole thing to just, do the big public executions in the ditches were all in the Ukraine. And then you had the other side where the Russians came over and just raped their way across the country and did that whole thing. So the level of barbarism that the Ukrainians have in their genetic code of trauma, I think is ununderstandable for us sitting in happy-go-lucky America, of like what they must be kind of shaking in their boots a little bit, like, Jesus, here, like we're here we go again, the battlefield for everybody else's bullshit. And then, you move up the clock a little bit more, the whole thing that it's argued on some level that was when that Hitler actually used tactical nukes over in the Ukraine. And that's how they were able to hold the invading Red Army at bay for so long. There's actually reports from some of the the Russian fighter pilots that describe basically, you know, thermonuclear weapons going or nuclear weapons going off on the Ukrainian battlefields because they couldn't, you know, when you go look at the numbers, they can't figure out how the Germans were able to hold off the Russians for so long in the Ukraine. And there's this sort of thing where like Hitler had the nuke, but didn't understand really like the power of it because he just viewed it as like a tactical weapon versus what the West understood it to be if you properly used on public display, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd definitely like to see some more on that one for sure.
I forget where you gotta kind of, I forget. See, that's one of the great resources I think we lost in this alternative knowledge seeking community that YouTube used to be really good was Red Ice Radio. I mean, Red Ice Radio, and
I remember that. I remember. I used to watch maybe a few episodes of that every now and again.
Dude, Jan 10 years ago, I think Jan 10 years ago was one of the key people for me expanding my mind because he was interviewing all of those dudes.
Is that the guy that would have 1 hour free on YouTube and then 1 hour like you had to pay for on his website or something?
Yeah, it was Red Ice Radio, and he's like Norwegian or something. And then it's some like
I totally forgot about that.
He was, but what's interesting with him is he was like, I'm saying he was putting out some of the best. This is one of the weird psyops that happened because he was interviewing, giving like the knowledge. He's the one who had the gal on who was talking about the English language being an artificially constructed language to make us slaves through tonal frequencies and the whole thing. He had all that kind of like interesting stuff. And then he and who else used to do the same sort of stuff was Hagman and Hagman out of Buffalo. And they both went down the Muslim terrorist invading forces bunny hole and like lost their minds and Jan became
Alex Jones and InfoWars did that as well.
Same thing. They bought into this like the invading hordes thing coming out of the Muslim world, and he literally like lost like his whole thing just turned, and he literally became like a crazy nationalist with this weird hot Nordic wife, and like I think he had a couple kids and just like stopped doing the super in-depth digging into this like knowledge. And just became like a lunatic and got banned. I Red Ice back in the day was the stuff, but yeah, that's where I don't even know if you could find it anymore.
No, I totally remember that though. I'd completely forgotten about it, but yeah, I remember that. The other guys, I remember the name, but I don't think I ever watched that guy. But exactly what you just described, a lot of people did that. Well,
I remember seeing it go. This was what I would say it's about 6 years ago. Because it was. I remember it because I remember because that's right around when all that stuff was going on here in San Bernardino and all that stuff. And there was the big rumor that there was the camps in upstate New York, and I kind of bit for a second, and then I went. You know, I've known a lot of Muslim people. I talked about my friend Hamed a lot, and I was like, it just doesn't jive. And I go, wait a minute. If I'm a Christian, why am I freaking out? Like, why am I not giving it back to God? And it was like this big, like, aha moment of really about like the fear narrative of like, how can I be a Christian and be afraid of some dudes? Like that, you know what I mean? And it kind of broke the spell where I was like, these people are all claiming to have this thing. And I go, well, then why would you be promoting fear and not solution? And like, no, you can't carpet bomb people ideologically. Because I always remember when I went over to Indonesia, and I that was right around the same time. And I came back from Indonesia and I was like, how do you explain the most populous Muslim nation on the world? And those dudes are super like, they ain't tripping. like, you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
nah, the whole, my buddy can break,
You know what? You know what it almost is. It's almost like if you go to a country, carpet bomb it, and completely destroy it, that the people there, they might want to do something back against you, right? Something called blowback.
not,
The word that is like in Harry Potter, right? You can't say Voldemort, he who shall not be named. Well, blowback is sort of the foreign policy equivalent in the United States.
unless of course you're Vietnam, like,
Hmm.
which I find fascinating. Like, that's our biggest ally, like, kind of left on the planet, which is very ironic. Like, Vietnam's willing to go down with the ship with the US as far as, because they know. They're like, these guys did us dirty, but like they buy our stuff. Mm-hmm. They're doing the reparations. I don't know. I think it's fascinating. It's even going back to I think what for me, what I see a lot of is there's a lot of stuff in the Ukraine.
With the YouTube stuff, though, I think it's almost people get pushed in the direction of tabloid media, where you just have to be more and more sensationalized to get an audience and keep an audience. So I think that's kind of what happens with that. And even I myself, I remembered during the Trump campaign, he was saying a lot of good stuff on foreign policy, right?
But this was even before all that. Like that's the thing. Like I've been on YouTube 13 years now, almost, and like there was a time when that wasn't necessary. Mm-hmm. Like I remember, like when that was going on, YouTube used to be like fascinating. Mm-hmm. Because you could go in and dig in on, you could go down the bunny hole of Max Egan and David Icke and get the stuff that came up and be like, well, let's go over there and see what's going on. And you would bump into these fascinating ideas that people had invested their knowledge into to explore. Like I'll always remember the one dude who was like, no, dude, like, that you could his whole theory or thesis or whatever it was he argued that you could only detonate a thermonuclear weapon on planet Earth at specific longitude and latitudes based upon like the solar configuration and gravitational pull of other planets. And he had this whole thing about why and when and where the bombs got let off, and even the test ones that they were based upon harmonic frequencies that were generated by celestial bodies aligning. And I just always remember being like, wow, that is some far out like stuff. And you can't find any of that stuff anymore. Like all of the red eye stuff's gone, it's all gone.
Yeah. So with the Trump stuff, right? I looked at that and thought, maybe I should just come out and just be like the English Trump supporting channel, right? I could be kind of like a niche audience that I could perhaps find there. So I thought about maybe I should go in that direction. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought all that would be doing is just going down the clickbait direction, going down the sensationalist direction, just trying to appeal to an audience instead of actually talking about critical issues. And thinking things through in a more balanced way, right? Because that kind of would have been the easy thing to do as well, right? It would be so easy for me right now to start a YouTube channel that's the British conservative that lives in the United States, right? That could probably be an interesting little niche that people would watch. But does that help us to just, again, go along with this left-right paradigm? I don't think so. I don't think it helps at all. And one thing, just one final point on what you just said before with these other channels and stuff. I thought this yesterday. I don't remember what I was searching for. I was searching for something on YouTube. All you get in the search results, the little official tick for all the little official ticked channels, all of the official news broadcasters, all of the official experts, right, that have been approved by the platform. You don't get anyone like me show up, or you show up, or anyone that's unapproved or unverified, like what it used to be, which was really interesting and really broadened, I think, a lot of people's minds and allowed us to think about issues from very different directions.
No, it's the thing's broken, but that's, if I look at like, to go into the YouTube corner for a minute, is like, demographically speaking, like it's just flatlined. If ever it's a trickle out, like, the only way anyone even comes back in is the bowl cut stuff, the early seeds, right? So I don't even think that it's even important anymore. Like on that thing, I do tend to, this is where I've kind of come around as a person who sat and listened and watched all from this side of the thing. I remember when all the like censorship started. I remember the big adpocalypse, and I remember all of that stuff. And the thing that I've noticed is that if you want to get deleted and censored, you absolutely will. If you want to be removed from these platforms, you absolutely will be. And there seems to be an intrinsic desire by many of the people who have been deleted to think that getting deleted it's almost like the victim consciousness, right?
It's like, become a badge of honor.
Yeah, and I remember the thing like Adpocalypse 1, because that was when the Adpocalypse thing happened. For a long time on YouTube, I didn't do ads. I would never even tried to make the money out of YouTube. It all came from my art. I would sell my art. It's all Etsy stuff. And then when Adpocalypse happened, that's when the algorithm switched, where you needed to be monetized in order to get your thing out, right? So I was like, all right, I got to monetize up. I asked my people, and they're like, no, go ahead, monetize. And to stay in the game, because Adpocalypse was basically, if you want the money, we're gonna jack you up. And this is where I think I tend to view it a little bit differently than a lot of people, is I view that stuff as me paying for the service, right? Like YouTube's for fun and for free, right? So I have my AdSense thing up. It's nothing. Like if without the top chats, there's nothing coming in. For me, I view it as server space. And now I got almost 3,000 videos up. I mean, I got weeks worth of content if you watch it start to finish. I'm paying for, I'm more than happy on the server space thing. So when they did the big Adpocalypse, I was like, look, man, like you guys are not willing to like pay for your service, and you're making filthy lucre over there too. So what do you expect? And then it became this thing. And I think it's all going to circle back around. I think that when this thing finally breaks, if it ever does, that YouTube's going to loosen up the thing, and they're going to be like, look, dude, we need everyone back. Because none of the other platforms are as free fire as what original YouTube was. Anyhow, it was just goofy dudes with making fun of people and the whole thing. But once the woke thing cracks, I do think that it's going to have a rebirth. It's my intuition on it. 15 censorship waves later. Like I'm still here, but the reason I'm here is because I've never bothered to be mono, right? I figure if I make enough making cheesecake videos and surfing videos and then talk some smack here and do this there, it's like, I'm kind of what they like want to hang on to a little bit, man. You know?
Yeah, one of the last remnants of a real channel from a real person, not one of these official corporate logos being slapped on something like everything else.
Well, the big hustle was most of those, because see, I even did all the stuff. Like I even had, God, this was a while back. Like I even went the route and joined up one of these things that was like sort of like a talent agency on YouTube. and they had all the shaytards and all these people. And I remember like dealing with them and being like, yeah, dude, like the fake genuine thing, because all those people cracked too. Like all those big YouTube family things, they were all as fake as could be, because they got into the one thing that how I think I've survived is I just don't care. Like on that level, like I care, but like I don't care. Like I would love to get the real phone call, but it's for a different mentality.
Yeah, I don't know. YouTube is it's a weird place now for sure. It's definitely not what it once was.
No. The odds of stumbling onto, like, I think I found Red Ice Radio by accident. It was like, whoa, what's this dude all about? Like, it was like one of those, like, but you know, you hear word of mouth like that. Like, so I've been, to move it on to a more current thing, like Ottawa, right? Like I've been watching Ottawa, and yesterday I was like, I need to find a channel, and I couldn't find one, but I found this gal's channel. The what is it? The red pilled, what is her name? Anyway, I gotta plug her because I've been piggybacking her stream, dude. But where is she? But you know, I found her thing, and it's interesting because she was talking about it today. Doing her thing was how she has been struggling to get in the algorithm. But I was like, I don't know how you came up, but like, what is her name? I like her channel. She's got a good, the red pilling the masses, right? And she was talking about how her thing's been stagnant. And like when I signed on to her account yesterday, I think it was at 2,200 subscribers. She's up a day later. She's up to 4,000 because I've been sharing her, and she's been doing great work on getting all these streams up and running. So I do think it's in there, but it's sort of like we got to want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to get past the first page of Google search results. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't look. I've been listening to Tim Pool say for 4 years now, I'm going to get deleted. And every time I hear that, I go, you're such a con man, dude, with that one statement alone. 4 years ago, you're not getting deleted. You're so in. And then he talks about, yeah, I can call them and know that. I go, you're not getting deleted.
He's one of them that really, to me, comes across as disingenuous on a lot of things. Someone that is kind of just trying to craft this persona that isn't real.
Well, so what's been fascinating and I wanted to get into you about this was, I have found something fascinating with this whole convoy thing, right? So I started, you know, it's all on Instagram, is sort of like the YouTube of 10 years ago in a weird way, you know. It's where the news, it's where you're getting all the news if you want the news, right? And so I got to find my chat. I got to find our chat again. I lost track of it. I don't know where it went. And so I saw the convoy starting up, and I was like, whatever. And I'd see some posts from here and there. And do I still got? Oh, you're still there. Okay. And then it started to get closer the other day, and I was like, why is, for example, because by then it was starting to be the thing where the people were on the overpasses and lining the highways. And I'm like, wait, this is looking like a big deal. And then there were other convoys leaving from the East Coast. And I was like, no, something's brewing up there, dude. And I was like, watching. And so Tim Pool didn't cover it at all this week, even on Friday. And I'm like, how are you not covering this? And another couple people that I've been always like, haven't covered it, will not touch it for some reason. And I've realized that I think it's actually more legit than we think. And why they won't touch it is I have a theory that these people are dependent upon the restrictions and the mandates to make their money. They don't want this to end either. They're just like the blue side of it all, if you will.
Yeah,
like,
no, I would entirely agree. That's basically how the mainstream media works and operates during a time of war and conflict. They do not necessarily want the conflict to end because that means, well, the headlines end, the clicks end, or back in the day, the newspapers stop being bought up with the crazy headlines on the front because there's nothing else to talk about because it's come to an end. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. I had not thought about that in terms of this issue, but yeah, that's an interesting one. A good way to think about
it. Something real genuine's going on up there, and I've been saturated in the thing. And I mean, at this stage of the game, you know, from my perspective, I feel that I'm pretty reliable on what I'm watching. Because I'm one of those people that I don't watch what's in front of me. I watch what's in the peripheral. That's where I've trained myself from my youth of how I used to watch. Like I used to be way into like cult movies, right? Like, you know, oddball movies. And our whole thing that I used to do with my buddy was we would watch the movie the first time, and then the second and third time, our main thing was to never watch the main situation, was always to watch the peripheral action, right? So when I watch all this stuff, I'm looking in the background of the pictures to look for the depth of field to see what is going on and the buzz in the side medias. And I was like, there's a weird silence inside the alternative. Just a second. I got it. Just 1 second.
No worries. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, and the idea of a grassroots protest movement is definitely something that's very different to other issues and causes which are forced upon us from above. We kind of see that with Ukraine, right? We have the mainstream media machine, the mainstream political machine, the mainstream military machine, all very much thinking that they have to get public support behind this issue. And that's, of course, something that takes a hell of a lot of effort to do that. Something that takes a hell of a lot of crafting of a situation and framing it in a particular way, which is definitely not good. But when you have something like this, which is more grassroots, well, that's very different and something that can actually threaten power structures. I was just comparing that, right, as a grassroots movement to the Ukraine thing, which is imposed from above by the political elites. You should care about this, and this is why, versus the people actually standing up and doing something on their own, which is very different.
Well, when you begin, I tend to, as a grassroots organizer myself or whatnot, to get people to look. You could argue that the beginning of the nucleus of this thing might have been a hustle for unions or whatever it was, or the government trying to cripple supply lines or whatever they were up to, right? You could, if you want to go there for a minute and just say it was a hustle from the beginning, fine. But once that convoy left, right, and all of a sudden you begin to see people lining the streets of small town Canada out there in the plains of Alberta, dude, or wherever the heck they are. And it's snowing and freezing cold, and they're standing out there at overpasses with their children and their signs and their cars parked along the highway. I go, wait a minute, dude, this is something else, dude. This is something else that's gotten off the chain. And I find the interesting thing about it is you take one of the more polite societies and you push them to the brink, and you keep pushing because they're polite people going, look, man, like, and eventually, like, they're like, well, here comes the convoy. Let's
Same
get
same thing in England. Boris Johnson, the people were happily complying, happily going along, and look what happened.
Yeah, they pushed too hard because they were, again, as I've always, as my one thing I've counted on through this thing is the hubris of the elite, is that they don't understand that people are lazy. And the minute you make it too difficult for the people that are willing to play along, they get annoyed. The people like me, the diamond souls, you're not getting me. I'll go to the ends of the earth to fight back on this thing for my children and my grandchildren, and because I read too many books, right? But the people that complied, the reason they complied was because they didn't want to be hassled at all. So all of a sudden you have this thing where people are like, look, man, you're like, I don't want to go to the store and do more nonsense. I don't want to have to, where's the card, I don't want to talk to anyone either. Like, I literally just want to go buy my beer and my grapes and my steak and go home. I forgot the card. God, geez, dude, I don't have my phone. I got to go back. It's snowing outside. And also, the one thing that you got is it's not a fair weather country. So you have people that are stuck in their house going, dude, I just want to go down to the thing. I don't need a bunch of drama, dude. There's like 3 places we go during the winter that's not my basement. One of them is the pizza joint, and the other one's there. And we got to, like, the kids got in that they're like, nah, dude. And then the trucker convoy comes by and they're like, you know what? Fuck this, dude. And I think what we see is something that is the spontaneous, and that's why J6 was an abject failure. I was talking about it today, is America's own, the American citizenry's hubris of tough guy is our Achilles heel. Like we've seen it over and over again around the world, right? If we talk about geopolitics, America thinks that it's the tough guy, and it gets its ass handed to it everywhere it goes. I mean, that was the last war we won was what, Grenada or Panama or something, like skirmishes. Like, when it really comes into it, dude, the most well-armed, buffest, toughest, macho, like hoorah country going military, we can't get anything done. We haven't won any of them. We lost every single freaking engagement we've been in.
And what have you paid for it with? Your political direction, your economic future, your lives, your futures, your children's futures. It's just unbelievable. But it's the thing is, I think what gives it is this hubris of bravado, right? Like, the Canadians are like, look, dude, we keep our street, like, their toughness is in they're dealing with the elements, right? I was looking at the roads these truckers were driving on. Dude, those roads that they've been all driving on are like sheets of ice, dude. They get, your average American tough guy would slide off the road like, oh, stuck in the snow. They, like, there's been no accidents, dude. Like, that gal was having CB bands on. Like, this city here shuts down with just 2 inches of snow.
Yeah, so I think when you saw what happened, and people are like, well, why did J6 fall apart? Because you had a bunch of people that want to be tough guys, and the system's like, all right, let's set up the tough guys and have them walk right in the trap. Why is what's going on in Ottawa going on? Because they're like, dude, we can't do anything to these people because they're high-fiving each other, laughing, like they're mellow people. Like, we're not going to convince them to do anything stupid. They're out there in their parkas, dude. Breaking windows and stuff is a fair weather activity. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy. No one's doing that in their snow boots and their parkas, dude. It's just not conducive to that, dude. Riots don't occur in the wintertime. And so, I think that America's needs to face its own bullshit. Like
so does England with all of this Brexit stuff and people thinking that it's still the height of the empire and Britain rules the world and this sort of thing. People need to come back down to earth. And Britain has this whole foreign policy direction called Global Britain or something. Really, is that necessary? Do we need to be a global Britain? Are we really a global Britain? Is that what we're supposed to be doing here right now? Is this what we're capable of doing right now? Probably not. We share aircraft carriers with the French, so probably not. But yeah, that's a big issue and something that in the power elite, C. Wright Mills talks about that a lot. The fact that society has been really transformed into this mass blob of people, right, that kind of just gets pushed around and thinks these certain things that usually follow these nationalistic lines of thinking. And the military plays a key role in this. And he says that the American people specifically have been psychically raped into believing that the military is their own and that it works for them and that it's the best in the world and that it's really just out to defend the United States, which I think is a really strong sentiment, but I think absolutely true.
Oh no, as a staunch anti-war person who's like, because I'm a serial killer. Like, if we're gonna do it. I remember I was making videos about like the thing, Syria, when it was going. I go, you can't be pissed at any Syrian dude who comes and does whatever he might do. Because if you did it to me, if I was sitting up minding my own business, wanting to picnic with my family and watch my kid kick a soccer ball around, and there was you blew up my picnic and maimed my wife and hurt my child, I'm heading right to you. I'll do it by hook or by crook, but I'm getting in there to do whatever it may be. And I never understood this duality of American reality of like, look, why I'm an anti-war activist is because I understand that we're a nation based upon bloodlust. And that if we're going to be a nation on bloodlust, we better be fully committed to the bloodlust, because this half measure BS is what gets people killed. And I really do think that if you like that, where America doesn't read up enough is reading into the Civil War generals prior to the Civil War, when it was getting hot, because they had all fought together and they all came from West Point together. They were all classmates. They all knew each other. They had all gone and fought in the war with Mexico. And these dudes knew exactly what it was all about. And they were all pretty much like, if we're going to do this, we go all the way, black flag, kill everybody, get it over with as quick as possible, or we don't do this at all. Because if we do this half measure, you get what they got, which was fields of blood for 4 years. And I find that the problem with America is it's this like, we want to be nation builders. I know, that's the one line I appreciated out of Trump, was his truth about it. Like, we blew him up, like, where's our gas? Like, just go and do it. Go, no, we're here to take your shit and go home with it. Fuck you. Like, if we're going to do it as a peace person, I can get behind that. You want, like, let's do the American thing, because we did it across the plains. We did it all. We've done it. That's been manifest destiny. That's been our whole, why we went down into South America, why we went to the Philippines, why we've done all of these things. Because it's like, no, we're here to take your stuff, and that's that. So put up a good fight, because we're going to indoctrinate your children and do the thing. But we're so soft that they're like, oh, look, dude, we're going to come in.
I think soft is the right word. I think it's like Mills said, it's a complete inversion of reality. They wrap all this up in the stars and the stripes and all the liberal rhetoric that comes along with it. that we're here to spread democracy and bring peace to the world and ensure stability and in territorial integrity, all these grand claims, right? Everything that the US does in terms of a foreign policy decision has to be a crusade in order to align it with this set of values. But like you said, well, that means that you don't fully commit, and therefore many unintended consequences end up heading in our direction. And I think that almost kind of brings us back to Russia and Putin as well, right? He's kind of doing the opposite. He's not wrapping things up in any sort of liberal rhetoric. It's like, hey, we need to intervene in Syria because Syria is home to our only port in the Mediterranean. And we'd like to keep that for our Navy, for our sphere of influence. Pretty clear what's going on in that case. Pretty clear what's going on in Ukraine as well. And everything that's gone on with the annexation of Crimea. Again, another naval port, right? It's very clear what they're trying to do. But with the United States, with the NATO coalition in particular, yeah, it's based on a bed of lies. I think it's the best way to put it.
Well, yeah, it's a bed of lies, and the lie that I don't even know if it's the bed of lies. It's this weird. They're like the analogy I would use is this: they're literally like general contractors that are like, well, we're gonna go build a house in this pristine forest, right? We're going to go out and build the house in this pristine forest. We chop down the horse, we put the foundation in, and we got the walls going up. But like when we go through the plans, there's no plans to finish this thing. We're out of here, dude. And I'm like, no. Like where, that's the thing is like, you look at like the Vietnam thing and just the insanity of like, they never planned on winning. So who's gets you back to this C. Wright Mills, right? Is we think these guys are trying to win these wars, but they're not, right? They're rebelizing for the sake of like circling back in 50 or 100 years and being like, oh, well, it's where we're going to build our new stuff because there's no one here. It's just rubble.
Yeah, I got a couple of articles here actually that kind of illustrate this point. Look at this one. UK Foreign Office says Kremlin is planning to install a pro-Russian leader in Ukraine. I mean, just everything in that headline is just absolutely mind-blowing, right? So has the UK never done this before anywhere in the world? Ever heard of colonialism? Does the US not do this to this very day? It's just absolute insanity. Look, the UK Foreign Office said in a Stats statement that it has information that the Russian government is planning to, quote, install a pro-Russian leader in Kiev as it considers whether to invade and occupy Ukraine. I mean, yeah, welcome to power politics. You must be new here. This is essentially what you've been doing for however many decades, and this one as well. So again, this is a more out in the open, right? Russia and Cuba discuss strategic partnership. Yeah. So if this is what you want, this is what you're going to get. This is called a sphere of influence. If you want Russia to come and step back into the American sphere of influence, well, here you go. Do you want another Cuban Missile Crisis? Here you go. All of the pieces are in play, ready to move. So Putin and Russia are kind of saying, make your move. Let's see what happens. And that's not a game that we want to play because, like you said at the very start, this is a nuclear superpower. You don't play games with this. You don't play games with the future of civilization.
Yeah. It's again, it's the weird, I think the weird trick that of the American thing is it's the hubris of it all. It's like we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, and I think that's what's always. I've never, again, as an American, right, as a true if I get into my like spot on spaceship Earth, spiritually speaking, I don't care about any of this stuff, dude. Even on a human level, I know this is all BS. But on a like terra firma, where I'm planted level of it all, like I'm a real American. And the reason I'm a real American is because I'm not going to pretend that we're not dirty fighters and we're not scumbags and we're not out to fill our own pockets with treasures and gold. Where I find the hypocrisy on it is this sugarcoating of it that I find that really it is what what I don't dig, because if people would just face the truth, they wouldn't co-sign onto this stuff. That's what I mean about like the whole, like, let's just call it out for what it is, dude. Like, we're coming to take your shit and we want a pipeline through your backyard. We want a pipeline through Syria.
Well, this is what you just said. This is how I explain WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Why are they being so heavily pursued, persecuted, whatever word you want to use to describe it? Because they threatened exactly what you just said. They threatened to offer people a real view into what was actually going on in the name of these stars and stripes, the red, white, and blue, the Star-Spangled Banner, all of this stuff, right? The rhetoric that we're spreading democracy, we're bringing peace, we're getting rid of the terrorists, all this sort of stuff. Well, WikiLeaks and Assange said, well, it doesn't really look too much like that actually on the ground, and here's the black and white footage of it playing out.
Well, that's sort of what I mean. Is that's why, like, you know, on the higher level of it all, like, I'm all about, like, I'm a non-war guy. I'm an anti-war all the way, and the primary reason is, if we're not going to be for real, then let's not do it at all. And I think that's why I have such a bitter flavor for these gung-hoers, dude. These sniper wannabe bearded dudes that somehow have gotten this hip culture thing going on in America, that they're like survivalists and patriots and big truck gun-toting fools. I go, dude, you guys are as fraudulent as they come in my books, because if you wanted to do this thing, don't come back here and claim that it's cool. It ain't cool.
Also don't come back and claim that. And the thing that you were doing was shooting at someone from like a mile away, or you were operating a piece of machinery that cost $50 million versus a guy in a cave with an AK shooting back at you. So, well,
I don't find there's valor in this thing, because the nature of it is it's a marketing campaign versus like, look, man, we want to go do this thing. Let's go do it. Let's go do it. Let's go mop them up and let's finish them off, dude. Like, for real. Like again, where I roll a little bit like in my like Weirdoville about the hustle with World War II isn't the thing. I go, that's not how you do it. Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, I can trap into my like evil geopolitical mind, right? And I no quarter. Like, if you're gonna do it, you don't do it piecemeal and hide it behind any like sort of, we're trying to get along and look good for the world front. Like, that's the stuff that where I don't buy any of the narrative throughout most of the history I've explored, because you dig back further, right? When the Huns came down from the north, dude, they didn't try to sugarcoat it. When Genghis Khan rode down the steppes, he didn't conquer those cities going, hey, you know, whatever. He literally was like, we're going to kill everybody if you don't surrender. And then when you do surrender, we're going to lop off these people. And that's just the way it's going to be. So how do you want it? And this weird modern thing just seems so disingenuous. And going back to the Ukraine, when I see it, I can see right through it. I go, guys ain't gonna do shit. because you got the pipeline. The Germans will need their gas. Like this is all a cover story hustle, and that's what I think is coming out of the Ukraine. Is like, leave us out of this bullshit, dude. Like we don't want it, and you guys are full of it because we're the ones who are going to pay the price, man. They don't want to. They're modern enough to be like, nah. They got enough bots out there, whatever they have in modern warfare, to be like, nah, dude, we ain't doing. Nah, just kick rocks, you guys. Suck it.
Yeah, when the price means the end of the country, for all intents and purposes. And one other thing that they base a lot of this hubris on is the technological capabilities of the United States, and this idea that the US is the hub of science and technology, and it's the most advanced country in the world, right? Well, we have all this technology, therefore we must be able to go over there, implement the technology, and easily achieve our solutions. Well, has that ever happened? Not really. Maybe in Iraq, maybe in Afghanistan in the first 2 weeks to maybe 2 months. Okay, yeah, your technology was excellent and it did a good job of achieving its goal. It overthrew those countries' governments. But what happened afterwards? Were you able to secure the country? No. Were you able to keep the countryside under control? No. But that plays into the game as well, because then what can the elites do? Well, they just turn around and say, we need the F-35. So this is going to be the key. This is the new technological key that we need to spend billions of dollars on. And then it's going to crash into the ocean. And then the Chinese are going to be trying to dredge it up, which is currently what is going on out in the Pacific. I don't know if you saw that one, but that's
no, that makes total sense. Well, it's going back to the interesting thing about Russia, why I think Russia is sort of this monolith of not giving a hoot, is for the same reason what I've realized over the last 2 years. The more I revert my household back to the 1920s or late 1800s technology, i.e. canning your own food, being more self-sufficient, not dependent upon the grid. You look at a country like Russia, they're broken down enough to be like, you and your computer program are going to do what? We live with candles a lot, dude. Have you seen our apartment blocks? Like, we're not, dude, shut it down. We don't care. We can make our own vodka, dude. We got, like, the Russians seem very like post-Soviet Union, right? Like, you hear the stories of, like, I remember my buddy went over to see he was like in one of those exchange classes in the early 90s after the wall fell. And he came back with these photos from the Russian space base of, like, literally like one of their, like, space shuttles, like in like a freaking barn, like a hoopty barn. And he's like, dude, and it goes to that thing is like, we were so worried about a country that was spending all their money to finance the Potemkin village of military, right? That they weren't building infrastructure like we were. So, like, when we come in with our, like, yeah, we're going to jack you guys up, they're like, dude, hey man, 40% of our country is still living like they did 80 years ago, dude. What are you going to do to them? What are you going to do to the crazy, gnarly dudes with no education in the hinterlands that we're going to send your way? Like you think Europe doesn't sit there and be like, dude, if those lunatics in real Russia, they start sending those dudes over here in trucks and trains with them, go get them. They'll mop them up in 5 minutes. And the Europeans know this. The Germans and the Poles and all those people are like, dude, the crazy Russians, we don't want anything to do with those dudes because they're halfway like 1920s. They don't care. I don't think they care. And I think that's where the Putin's not even flinching on it, is he? He's like, whatever, I'm going to put 100,000 troops over here. Like, okay.
Yeah, like the United States does in South Korea. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy is just insanity. But
Well, the United States.
they base the argument against them on all of this rhetoric, on all of this. Well, we're spreading democracy and peace and love and saving the world and territorial integrity and sovereignty, all these buzzwords, right? But everyone else, if they do it, well, it's the end of the world.
Well, it's that weird thing is that, you take go back to South Korea for a minute, right? That's such a modern built up country, right? Super modern. I literally think the North Koreans could get a carrier pigeon to fly into one of their circuit breakers and shut down that whole country. And they would be like panic, while the other side, those guys are like, do we eat crickets? You don't care. I think there's this weird war where the Russians are like, dude, we'll live. Remember in the Bay Area when the dude shot up the power plant, the transformer station? They still don't talk about that one a lot. When they shut down the whole grid up in the Bay Area, it was like one dude with an AK, and they've never found that dude, and they never talk about it. That happened, 8 years ago? Dude just shot into some of those transformer boxes, shut all that stuff down because America does not have the backup infrastructure.
That happened with the guy who parked the truck outside of an AT&T place. When was that? Last year, the year before?
Oh, yeah.
And he blew that up and did the same thing.
Well, it's that thing is our infrastructure is spread so thin, and what most people don't know is we do not have backup transformers for the big power grid zones. So if that dude shot up one of those things in the behind the barbed wire that anyone can throw a tennis ball at, shot up one of those things, and there's not like there's a warehouse full of them or backup ones. So they got to be custom made. People don't know this. They got to be custom made at some factory, as we let our factory base fall apart in this country, and we're dependent upon China and all these other countries for the raw materials and the component pieces. That's why that Putin's laughing. He's like, look, dude, I literally, dude, will call the Chinese and go, dude, just hold up that one ship, dude. You know the one, right? The one with all the little magic pieces that go into the little semiconductor power plant things. You just hold that thing back a month, right? I got a dude over in California with an AK, dude. I'm gonna send him. I'm gonna cut him loose. I'm gonna cut him loose in his Cadillac Escalade, dude. And he's gonna get all hopped up on Molly and go shoot up some of these things, dude. And he's gonna go back to his brothel in East LA, dude. Everything will be fine. America's so out of control, stupid, dude.
Yeah, the infrastructure is strange as well, especially for me coming to the US, right? And all the images that you see of the US outside of the US are that it's the most hyper advanced place in the world. And when you get here and you drive across the country, it's a lot of problems.
a lot of people living in prefab mobile houses, right? Mm-hmm. And nights you get that they send out those postcards of too many people have watched Poltergeist and Steven and George Lucas films, and they're like, oh, America's suburbs film. No, most of America's living in shitty trailers, dude, dependent with little bug lights out in front of them, just being like, am I going to tattoo on my face or on the side of my forehead?
Drive across Oklahoma here. And you just go through so many tiny little towns, and there's nothing there. Everything that was there is shut and boarded up. The only things that are really left are you get the old kind of junkyard place where you still see a few people walking around. It's like the junkyard and the church, and that's all that's left. In so many of these tiny little towns, they're just deserted.
Well, I think that's, getting in the hopefulness of it all, right? That what the truckers are doing and some of the things. I think that's where our future lies is going back to these small abandoned small town in America communities and being like, all right, look, dude, we're out here, we can grow our own food. I really do think that that's our way out of this thing, is to get back to the one room schoolhouse and the farm and the local doctor and who does the whole body thing, and reconstitute ourselves based upon like the work ethic. Like I see these, I mean, you watch any of this stuff, is these dipshits with the tattoos on their face and the shit thing in there. I do your thing of whatever, I don't care. But somebody's raising these primitives, dude, and that's where we've fallen apart. Is it's not that you can't go do what you want and suck fish balloons in a fish parking lot. It's the fact that like that's the desired reality of America right now, is just this dumb fuck with shit on his face and sucking balloons and being a loser and saggy pants. And I go, conquer us already. Fuck these guys. Clean out the garbage. I go, if it takes a bunch of Chinese dickheads with jackboots to get rid of the garbage in America, well, it's hey, man.
Yeah, when you look at the culture, or what passes for culture at this point in the Western world, it's a joke. And yeah, I've been in the US now for 6 years. Yeah, it'll be 6 years this August. And progressively, just in those 6 years, the kind of in style for clothing right now seems to just be homeless.
Derelict. It's derelict. What, have you seen, dude? You got to go look at the thing. I'll give this. Owen Benjamin does this thing about that Donald Trump is Derek Zoolander, dude. And it's genius, because when you take the thing that Trump's Derek Zoolander and Joe Biden's Hansel, and you put the whole thing through the lens of Zoolander, modern America reality, you're like, oh, okay, dude. It's that stupid. It's that stupid. And like, we're hoping for, like, that's what, like, so I'm watching the Canadian thing up there in Ottawa today, right? All day. I'm just like, wow, look at this. It's amazing, dude. What's going on? And like I said, I'm peripherally, but I'm looking at the people, dude. You know what I didn't see up there in Ottawa all day long? Dipshits with face tattoos and shit bolted to their faces. The group in Ottawa, all the pictures from the thing were all very good looking people. And I don't mean that like handsome. I just meant like tidy. Like, do you remember like you look back
I've been breaking out the suit and tie for every video that I put on YouTube since coming back. I think there is something to it. I really do think there is something to it.
Dude, how do you look at the civil rights movement, right? Mm-hmm. How did they do it? Like, one of the things, how did they do it? They were well dressed. Mm-hmm. They said, take us serious. We're well dressed. Dude, I go to a church, like a main church, like, and it trips me out. People wearing freaking t-shirts to church on a Sunday. I just want to slap them and go, dude, you're supposedly an American patriot Christian, and you're showing up to Sunday church with a MAGA hat on? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to have your button-down shirt on. You're supposed to be all tucked in, no labels on yourself, because you're there to represent. It's like that's my main thing, is just how far we've fallen when it comes to like, I'm not taking anyone serious in something that looks like a slob. Like, I go to these, like, yeah, I'm with you, man. As I'm sitting here in my t-shirt that belongs on a 12-year-old child, dude. I know this. My wife calls it out all the time, dude. It was funny when I was dealing with my mental health a couple of years ago, before the fire. Like, one of the things I did when I received the transmission from God, how to like help myself, like overnight, was the one thing I went and did is I got rid of all my clothes. I got all button-down shirts. I got all stuff that fit me and belts. And I just did this like makeover thing where I was like, no matter what I was doing, I was looking sharp, dude. And I'm like, as I'm talking to you, I was like, that's one of the things that we all need to do is like take a look at what we're wearing. Like, look at me. I'm like a homeless teenager right now. How could you take me serious? I got like, am I worthy of being represented, dude? Like, it's hard to say, dude. I do think that's a huge, like Malcolm X, dude, that guy was as well-spoken as they come and looked good, dude. Was tailored. Those dude, like you look at the black culture of that era of the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, they were well dressed, man. You look at the food lines in the 1920s. There you go.
There we go.
You look at the food lines during the Great Depression, they were all well dressed, standing in line in poverty because they
just that.
Yeah,
just that. Look at the difference.
That was exactly.
We're not professional.
Now you're a professional, almost. You look like you look like a preacher now.
Yeah, there you go. Preaching the truth.
Well, but I think that you go to some of these things and you realize that's where it does lie is if you can't expect to change any of this stuff geopolitically, any of it, or take on the big beast, if you're wearing pants that they've convinced you have holes to wear holy pants. Like I got a teenager. I'm like, dude, I like would lose my mind about like you bought new pants with holes in them. I go, dude, like that, what kind of psychotic con job is that? Like you've been convinced to buy pants with holes in them. What? Like the battles I had about the ripped jeans, dude. I gave up. I was like, dude. She laughs because I think she's reverted out of that stuff, but I would just trip out and be like, dude, like derelict, man. And that's, I'll tell you what, man, it's another thing about old Mr. Putin. He dresses sharp, dude. He's got Biden just looks like a suit, dude. Putin usually looks pretty fashionable, man.
Yeah.
He's fit, dude. Like that's it. Like, do you want to talk about like world leaders? Why do we not have any fit world leaders? Mm-hmm. Like fit dudes, like not like fit dudes. Like Putin's fit. You can tell that dude could fully knock you the fuck out. Like straight up, like, really? You want to talk smack? I'll beat your ass right here, right now, dude.
He kind of looks like he's got that Joe Rogan physique, like this slightly shorter, but really kind of built up.
Dude, I guarantee that dude coming out of the KGB and he'd probably take Rogan, dude. I bet he's got some moves no one's seen.
That's the pay-per-view for the ages.
Like, no, I think there's a certain aspect about it. Like when I look at it, I go, you're telling me the fit dude in Russia with the country that's all sort of backed up with low tech is looking at a dipshit with a bad haircut in the UK and another dude who's drooling on his lapels, making incoherent sentence. And he's like, these are the puppets you put in front of me? No, dude, no. And the Chinese got to be saying the same thing. Like, fuck you guys, dude. Like, really? They don't care about Taiwan. That's their big, like, we'll fly some planes and we're going to invade Taiwan. I don't care. They got their own hustle going on in Taiwan, dude. Everyone's like, Taiwan, they ain't worried about Taiwan. They're busy buying up Australia's water rights. Like everyone's tripping on Taiwan to talk geopolitics, right? Like Taiwan's not the thing to keep your eye on. It's Australia's water rights. That's what what everyone should be looking at. You look at the buy-up of Australian mineral rights and all that stuff, especially down in Tasmania, dude. I think China bought like the largest dairy farm in Tasmania. You look at the land acquisition of the Chinese in Australia, dude. Like you'd be like, they ain't sweating Taiwan. They'll literally pull we'll just go to Australia, fuck Taiwan, dude. I really think that's where it's at with what's going on down there.
Yeah, China's another interesting one, which is also rotating into the position of the enemy when it is appropriate to do so.
Well, I would argue they really are the enemy. Like, but I think that their Belt and Road thing, and the Chinese have stated it very clear. Like, we're invading with yen, or whatever the currency is. It's yen, right? We're invading with yen, not bullets. And their thing around the world. I mean, you look at the infrastructure they've placed across Africa. You look at what they're doing in South America, man. They're untouchable, dude. They don't need to come mess with us, dude. They just need to keep building stuff in the rest of the world while we're busy like blowing stuff up. Like, you think if you're an African leader, you're like down there, you're like in the middle of like wherever Africa. You're like, well, I could go with the Chinese. They could build me a bunch of roads, some schools, a new port, some energy facilities. Like, they're not going to charge me an IMF loan. They're not going to put us in bankruptcy. They're just going to come build us some stuff. But what we're going to give them is mineral rights and this and that. And they're going to have free reign in our thing. Or we could wait around till these dickhead American and Western French and things blow us up. Regardless of what we do. I think the Chinese, we won't get blown up, dude. They're like, the Americans and the French ain't going to come mess with us. Once the Chinese build roads here, we're good. I think there's a level of like, the Chinese are the real enemy, but not for the reason we think so. I think they're the enemy because they're going to force the authoritarian dictatorship on our head. Like, the only response to China is to clamp down on the free West by the Western leaders to turn us into.
They did a pretty good job of aligning themselves with Chinese policy, with lockdowns and the like.
Yeah. I mean, this is all like China playbook stuff. And everyone's got this idea that, the Chinese are going to come over here like Red Dawn or something. I go, you look at what is it? What is the one they invest in all the schools? Like, they're already
the Confucian Institutes.
The Confucian Institute. Yeah, they're in all the schools. You look at I mean, come on, look at we got a Chinese chick in charge of Canadian health. We got a Chinese chick in charge of when in charge of what, the CDC or NIH, whichever one she's in charge of. These are all like, the assets are all over the place. They're like, dude, we're already here buying up all your property. Like, you guys, silly Americans think we're going to come shoot it out with you, dude. You're going to be giving us your gun for a bowl of rice, dude. It's going to be the inversion of the Holiday in Cambodia song. You'll work harder for a bowl of rice with a gun at your back. It'll be like, no, you'll give us the gun on your back for a bowl of rice to work real hard, like, I think that's what I think the level of like insanity is. Like, I don't get it. But,
we're in a big old mess, I think, is where we are.
or we're not, or we're poised for the most beautiful slide into home plate ever. I like, something's going on up in Ottawa. If they can keep it going and get Trudeau to crack, which is, we'll finish it up on this as from your expertise. What's Trudeau's play? He's kind of boxed in, man.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. I do not have an answer. I can tell you what he's probably going to look like at the end of next week. He's going to look like Joe Biden and Boris Johnson. So we can add another one to the list of failed Western leaders who grandstand on all of this almighty rhetoric and fail when push comes to shove. So yeah, I think that's where he's going to be. In terms of options, I don't think he has too many.
Well, the interesting thing, like watching it, is where I think you can't claim they're a threat and not have stayed in the leadership post and like pushed back, right? He's given up now 36 hours. Like, it's right. Like, these are huge. Every minute that they're in, let's look right now. Every minute they're in in Ottawa, like hanging out, dancing in the streets, dude, with their 18 wheelers, is another minute that he can't come in and say that these are fringe minority white supremacist threats. That he can't toe that line. He could have if 36 hours ago when they first started rolling in, he threw up, he threw the weight of the Canadian, whatever they are, National Guard or whoever they are at them and put roadblocks up and, pushed and kept them out of the city. He could have dictated the narrative. Right. But now he can't say they're bad people. He and the false flag window's way closed. Like you can go do your false flag tomorrow, but you will know it's not them because they've been there for 36 hours pumping the music, like high-fiving each other. Like it's not like the J6ers who immediately blew it, right? Like they went for what 3 hours later, we walked over there, you got monkeys banging on the wall. Like they've been sitting in front of that building now for a day and a half.
Yeah, I tell you, another good source for information on this is Jordan Peterson's Twitter.
I saw that
stuff.
I saw the order they put into place about the thing, which is real interesting because that order they put in, we did a dissect on it earlier.
Oh, okay.
Was as I was doing the live stream of of Ottawa earlier today and we were breaking down the order that got signed via Peterson's Twitter. Was the interesting part is there's real specific language about the 104 and Nova Scotia between New Brunswick, right? And if you look at it on the map, there's like literally one highway that comes out of Nova Scotia into New Brunswick. And they're very obviously, because there's like a whole paragraph dedicated to the highway 104 there. They're obviously very worried about that bottleneck. And that's not even, it's 500 miles from Ottawa, it looked like. So I think what if I read that executive or that new emergency order properly, they ain't worried about like downtown Ottawa. Like they're worried about everywhere else in Canada. Because I had people on the chat that like they were in Regina at the state capital, Saskatchewan. They're like, it's going on all over Canada. And I think if I read that order right, is like they've bailed on I think Ottawa. They go, well, we've ceded Ottawa. But if they get toeholds in anywhere out there, they're shutting us down for real. And I think that's where you might see Trudeau get dirty. I think he leaves Ottawa in place and then he goes and tries to break it at some of these outposts, if they are actually outposts out there of this resistance. I think he's in a real tricky spot as a leader because he waffled with his little, like, I tested, I was exposed, I'm out of here, see ya. Like he should have stood right there on the front steps of the parliament and been like, hey.
Yeah, because apparently he's gone, right?
No, he left. They flew him out earlier today, dude.
Yeah.
If he had stood on the steps of the parliament like a badass with the PA system and said, hey, you guys go see those dudes? They're coming in here. You know what they're doing? They're going to start writing tickets. We're going to impound every one of these rigs. You guys are done. Just leave them here. You don't get them anymore. They're ours. You don't want to play that ball? You're surrounded. We win. But he didn't, dude. He let them get the toehold. So the rest of the world's like, all right, it's the Canadians, dude. It's Canadian bacon. I mean, it's John Candy, dude. Come on. It's like, so I think he's in this place now where he can't give in on the globalist agenda. Or does he come out and just be like, all right, the people have spoken, like the mandates are over, we're done, the UK did it, Ireland's out, maybe I got this all wrong. Does he fall on the sword, or does he pull a mysterious COVID death, fly off to Cuba?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this week though, there's going to be probably some kind of resolution to this one way or another.
Well, it's very interesting because they showed up ready to stay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those truckers are like, they're interviewing. They're like, dude, we're ready to last. We're sweating it out. Ain't going anywhere. Again, it's that thing where like, you can't paint them to be anything. They've already established the narrative. You can say anything you want about them now. It's like, they haven't done anything wrong in 36 hours. I mean, unless there's something crazy's gone on while we've been talking.
Mm-hmm.
That last one, before I flipped it on, they literally had like a rave going on with like people like partying, you know, like in front of the F Trudeau thing. Like I was like, come on, dude. You win. I do think that's the way we beat these guys is dancing and partying and like, yeah, and high fives and like, no, dude, you guys don't count. Take your little dumb toys and look at
maybe we'll have to jump on next week if something dramatic happens and discuss.
Well, but if something cracks during this week, we should definitely do a little analysis. But I think we could sit here all night and babble about it. But so I dig what we're doing. Oh, let me pull up this. Maybe we can get this before we're on the way out the door. If anyone's even listening to us anymore, is the ramblings.
Is anyone still out there?
Yeah, our people are stoked. So hey, you guys, Stuart and I want to know what we should call our show. Mm-hmm. Like, so with Jordan and I do riding the skate tricks. What should we call this thing? Because we're doing it every 2 weeks. This time seems to work for us. And it's sort of a geopolitical show, right? I mean, we're talking about the stuff no one likes to talk about. Mm-hmm. The ignore stuff.
Bigger than the left versus right.
Yeah.
Not too interested in that bull crap.
No, I've resigned myself more and more to just, it's done. Well, I think that's what we see in Canada right now too, is due to the parliamentary nature of it. It's mowed over the right versus left now. It's no longer about the sauce in Canada. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much like, it's mandates. Ham stew. Nah, that's close. Ham stew.
It's kind of the one I suggested, but just a little.
It's like cooking with ham stew, but winning. Well, you guys think on and email me or whatever, and we'll be back in 2 weeks unless something magic, which I think we're in a hot time right now, so we might be back earlier, dude.
Definitely.
Ham and hopper. All right, dude. You guys figure it out. Let us know. All right, Stuart. Stoked to hang out with you, my brother.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful week. Wrap up that PhD so I can call you doctor.
Yeah. Then they'll really have to take us seriously.
Dude, no, I can't wait to call you doctor, dude. Hey, have a good night.